The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of our investigation is the tragic abduction and death of a 4-year-old boy from Texas who was sleeping peacefully in his crib next to his twin brother when evil entered his room. Here's the story. In the dead of night, a 4-year-old boy sleeping next to his twin brother vanished from his crib. That boy was Cash Gernon, kidnapped from his Dallas home in May of 2021. It was a story that pulled at the heartstrings of the community and the true crime world. Who would take this innocent boy from his crib? Then surveillance footage surfaced revealing a figure entering the room and carrying him away. Who was it? And why would he do it? Those were the two big questions. But part of the answer was uncovered when Cash's body was later found abandoned 8 blocks away, stabbed multiple times. Authorities identified the man in the video and charged 18-year-old Darriynn Brown with capital murder, kidnapping, and burglary. Brown had been declared incompetent to stand trial, but is now declared competent. And as a result, he will stand trial this October, facing a potential death sentence for the murder of little Cash Gernon. This story is so sad. A little boy just sleeping. A little boy who's a twin, sleeping with his brother. And someone comes in, takes him, and then takes his life. Okay, Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas has been looking into this case for us. Cody, great to see you tonight. Let's get up to speed here. What do we know?
Well, Vinny, is just a horrific story. Darriynn Brown, only 18 years old at the time of this break-in and murder of this little toddler, this young little kid, this murder that sent this Dallas neighborhood into this horrified frenzy. And there had been reports of things that Brown had done in the neighborhood before, but this was the thing that really set people in that neighborhood off. And Vinny, it's likely because of this video obtained by the Daily Mail, this baby monitor video showing Brown standing over Cash and his twin brother Carter before he snatched Cash out of the bed. Let's take a look at it. So, Vinny, just like a monster out of the closet, a monster from under the bed for these little kids in their room, snatching Cash right out of that crib. Now, like I said, he was lying next to his twin brother, Carter, and they were at the house of a woman, the ex-girlfriend of their father, actually, a woman named Monica Sherrod. So, Vinny, when we have things like this, we see him standing here in this room at this time of night, we have to break down the day and sort of a timeline. Where did it start? What time was he standing there looking over these children? So we made a timeline for you, and the actual time he was standing there was around 5 o'clock in the morning, Vinny. 5 a.m., that's when he's standing over Cash's bed and snatches him up. Now, at 6:52 a.m., just almost 2 hours later, a woman out for her morning jog, this passerby finds Cash's body just discarded on the road like trash. It's very unfortunate and sad. Then around 7:30 a.m., Vinny, here's the kicker, Darriynn Brown returned inside the house back into the boy's room. So 2.5 hours later, after he snatched Cash out of the bed, he's back inside the house looking over Carter, the other twin that he did not take, and that kid was not harmed at all. Then around 10:48 a.m., that's when Cash's father's friend eventually calls 911. Now, let's take a look at the neighborhood, Vinny. Let's take a look at some key locations here. We have where the boys were sleeping there in the bottom left of the screen. That's at 7527 Florina Parkway, Dallas, Texas. Then we have the location where Cash was found at the top of the screen. That's on the 7500 block of Saddle Ridge Drive, also in Dallas. And then Darriynn Brown's home, 7435 Bayberry Lane, Dallas. And Vinnie, you can see in the proximity there, it's all pretty much the same neighborhood. It looks like they're around the perimeter of the middle of that, well, it looks like a little park there, a green space, but all within a mile, 2 miles of each other, so not out of the way whatsoever. And now, Vinnie, we have to analyze some of the evidence here, because what's important when you have a defendant like this, what evidence puts him in the house, what evidence connects him to this victim. So according to CBS 11 in Dallas, they cite the affidavit for the search warrant. It says in part, a tissue paper in a bathroom that had blood drops on it, and a small pocket knife was also located and seized, and that is inside the home where the boys were, so the victim's home. Now, WFAA in Dallas reported this, quote, according to an arrest warrant, investigators searched Brown's room. After Gernon was found dead, they collected an Adidas zipper hoodie, a pair of shoes, and a pair of dark-colored sunglasses and sent the items to the lab. Police documents state that all 3 items tested positive for Gernon's blood. So, Vinnie, to me, that's the whole case. Blood on his clothing found in his room, connecting him directly to the victim. Just so very horrific and horrendous in this Dallas neighborhood.
All right, thanks, Cody. Cody's going to stick around tonight and help us out. All right, all this information now brings us to the first question in our investigation. Based upon the evidence that we know, is this an easy case to prove? Right? Relatively easy. You got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, but is this fall on the more straightforward kind of case? Here to help answer that question, 2 great ones. Former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. It's Chris McDonough, and retired homicide detective and host of The Murder Mind Show, Vince Velasquez. Great to have you both here. Vince, I'll start with you. Looking at this case, I mean, I think everyone looks at it and says, we've got everything we need. You still need to prove it, though, in court. How do you see this case? Is this one of the easy ones?
This is not a very hard case. You have a video that shows the suspect in the child's room. And of course, any lawyer will say that's a jury question. That's a jury decision to say that is actually him. What's great is I understand the reporter stated they recovered an Adidas sweatshirt. If you look at the video, you actually see an Adidas logo on one of the sleeves. Those shoes are pretty distinct. As a homicide detective, I would have shown this video to probably people that have known him and can say that they've seen him wearing these clothes, and it's all of those little bits of circumstantial evidence tied in with the DNA, and the DNA is irrefutable. If this is the victim's blood through DNA on his clothing, of course he may come back and say, he stumbled upon the body. That wasn't him in the video. He may have touched him and got the blood on there, but I think the clothes in the video are pretty distinct, and that's going to tie it all together.
Yeah, Chris, the one question that's not really answered by the video is how does he get into the house to begin with? And I think that's something that a jury may want to know, if there's any sort of connection or manner for him to get in and to get out of the home, in addition to the other evidence.
Yeah, Vinny, and like Vince was saying there, I mean, at that point, you want to start establishing, maybe a pattern of life. Did he have, a circle of influence that was connected to that particular house? And then, of course, you want to start looking for the digital footprint in the neighborhood, Ring cameras, that kind of stuff, because this is it's a middle-class neighborhood, and maybe somebody's got him coming, and maybe somebody's got him potentially casing the house.
Now, Vince, the other thing you have to do, right, because regardless of what the defense is going to be, you've got to dot the I's, cross the T's. So do you have to investigate and eliminate the other people in the house, in the neighborhood, et cetera?
100%, because a defense attorney will latch on to any possibility to introduce some doubt into a juror's mind with the hope of either an acquittal, which is unlikely in my opinion, or a hung jury. So the detectives have to do a very careful job of eliminating everybody, establishing whether there was a connection with this defendant and anybody that lived in the house, the girlfriend, the father of the children, anyone that lived in the house, and refute all of that evidence, and then establish, exactly what happened. My understanding is that there was something wrong with the front door or a door to the house. I saw an article online where someone actually took reporters on a tour of the house, and they showed where the lock to the door was accessible easily. So all of those things, I'm sure the detectives have been documenting. And, what's really important about this case is that, I know there's been a mental health defense. It's already been presented. But the fact that this defendant came back and looked at the second child, the twin brother, and for whatever reason was scared away, he had the mental capacity to make his way back. He had the mental capacity to hide the first child in the bushes. And then, I'm no psychologist, but I've had cases, and that shows exactly why he's been ruled, is capable and competent to stand trial.
And when we look at these images, Chris, it's so chilling. And I think that the knee-jerk reaction for many people when a child disappears and is found killed or is never found, everyone always looks at who was in the house, looks at the parents or the guardian or whoever was in charge of the child. If this video didn't exist, this may have been this would have been a much more difficult case to solve, and it would have been one that maybe would have been impossible to solve if they didn't have his DNA on file, right? If he's 18 years old, chances are his DNA is not in the system. So if they got DNA from the victim, may not have been able to match it up.
Yeah, 100%, Vinny. And then, of course, you've got to start looking at, this guy's state of mind, which Vince was talking about for the defense. But if you'll notice in that video, when he first reaches down to grab the child, he looks over his right shoulder. So he's thinking while he's doing this, and then he makes his move. So that's going to play into whether or not he knew right from wrong. And that's also going to show what was his intent. Was his intent just to go into the room, et cetera, or was his intent really to take that child for unknown reasons at this point?
Yeah, it is so, and there's two children there. That's the other thing, Vince. There's two children there, and making that decision. I mean, the criminal mind just scares me, Vince.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to actually see the entire video, and he actually stands there staring at the bed with the twins in it for over 2 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes. He's just standing there, and who knows what's going through his mind. And honestly, a depraved mind, is hard for us to understand what's going on up there. But after 2.5 minutes, what he does is pretty sudden. It's almost like that thought hit him. He reaches down, he grabs his kid. Unfortunately, he runs away, and we know the timeline. By the time he's back, unfortunately, the first child is dead. He's back in the same bedroom by 7:30 in the morning. In the video I saw, it's already daylight. There's daylight peeking through the windows. So the gall of this guy to come back, not even caring whether someone, could discover him in the kid's room. He's actually talking to himself. This video that I saw, you can't understand what he's saying, but he's speaking out loud. And honestly, that is going to be something I think the defense is going to harp on. They're going to focus on and try to demonstrate to a jury. But, what's good is that he has been found competent to stand trial. And as we all know, the goal is to try to, as a defense attorney, try to get a jury or a judge to understand that he didn't know what he was doing. It's been established he knew exactly what he was doing when he did it, and now he's competent to stand trial and should be responsible for this.
All right, Vince is going to stick around. Chris McDonough, thank you so much. Great to see you. Coming up next, does this sound like a case of legal insanity?
The Court TV podcast will return.
It's really traumatizing to see that. I I don't feel safe. I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
That's Antoinese Square, a woman who was out for a run and discovered the body of little Cash Gernon, 4 years old, stabbed to death and discarded in the street. So the evidence, as we saw, seemingly overwhelming in this case between the video and the DNA. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. All right, so let's talk about the defense here. What is the defense, we believe?
Well, Vinny, even though he was deemed competent to stand trial coming up later this year, they have filed an insanity defense that he didn't know right from wrong at the time that the murder took place. And Brown's defense attorney, Vinny, Heath Harris, has gone on to entertain the fact that he believes that Brown has schizophrenia. He even told the local station KDFW, quote, "Based on what I believe, I'm going to be able to support this kid is schizophrenic." He said, "We want to see if this was a situation where it's a whodunit or a simple question of why wasn't this prevented?" And Vinny, here's another bit of him speaking to a local station, WFAA, shortly following the murder. Take a listen.
Talked to him numerous times. Still of the opinion that he's incompetent and can't assist in his defense. If we could have gotten him the treatment that he needed then, you know, this tragedy may have never happened.
So he's now competent, Vinny. That was a little bit before he was declared competent. But according to that same station, WFAA, this isn't the first time that Brown has gotten into bad things in the neighborhood, especially something similar to this. A couple of months before Cash's murder, court records show that Brown broke into a home a few doors down from where Cash was staying, assaulted an elderly homeowner, and tried to take his 2-year-old granddaughter. Now, that grandfather only pressed charges 3 days after Cash's body was found because Monica Sherrod, that's the woman, the home where Cash was staying, told him that Darriynn Brown was having a mental episode and that he would sometimes stay at her house. Stay at her house, Vinny. That's the tidbit there. Brown knew Monica Sherrod and her teen son, but there's no definitive link to a motive between the three of them whatsoever that's been filed by authorities just yet. But we also, Vinny, have video of Brown breaking into cars in the neighborhood. Let's bring that up now. You see him there pulling on the handles of this car, seemingly trying to break into it, seeing what's in it. Just up to no good in this neighborhood, Vinny.
Wow. So it does not appear to be a first-time issue here. Cody, thanks so much. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Does this sound like a case of legal insanity, right? Does this sound like something that you could prove or that an expert would say fits into that standard of legal insanity? Here to help with our investigation, psychiatrist, forensic specialist, mental health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai, and Texas criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, Lindsay Richards. Great to see you both. Dr. Safai, let's begin with schizophrenia. What does that mean? And someone who is suffering from that, if that in fact is the diagnosis here, would they have a difficulty understanding what they're doing?
Sure. Basically, schizophrenia is a collection of symptoms, and they don't happen overnight. You need at least 6 months of active syndromes. And those syndromes include delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized behavior. People who have schizophrenia are usually, in my experience, Vinny, so disorganized that it's hard to carry out and execute a plan. So, you know, I got to point out here that people with mental illness are usually the victims of violence and not the perpetrators. So this is a rarity. If in fact he has schizophrenia, I want you to know and your viewers to know that this is not normal, the norm usually here. But you know, it's going to be very hard in this case, whether he has schizophrenia or not, to prove that at the time he committed this act of violence, whether he understood what he was doing, basically, and whether he knew it was wrong. And then if the answer to both of those are no, they also have to prove that it was what he did was as a result of mental illness, which is very difficult to prove in my experience. And that's why most people usually don't go with this plea.
Lindsay, let's talk about Texas, the legal standard and how juries in Texas have handled cases like this. I remember covering the Andrea Yates case, and that was one where it was successful, but the circumstances here seem quite different.
I was actually going to bring up Andrea Yates, so it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it is one of the rare cases that we've seen where insanity worked as a defense. It is incredibly difficult, and as all the experts have continued to say, that to plead insanity, the defense then has to prove that at the time of the offense, retroactively at that time, due to the mental disease or defect, this particular defendant was unaware that his conduct was in fact criminal. And that is an unbelievably high obstacle to overcome. Now, it is a preponderance of the evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt that this person was insane at the time of the offense. Unfortunately, it does seem as if there are behaviors that make it clear he knew, in fact, what he was doing. He's sneaking into the house. He is, you can see even on the other videos of burglarizing cars, he seems to have his face covered. All of those are indications that he must know what he's doing is, in fact, criminal. So it is difficult to have an insanity defense, but I do think based on the evidence here, it's really the only defense that this team has in defending this individual.
And this is a death penalty case. How does it impact that part of the case?
It's well, it's mitigation for the death penalty for sure. And so that's something that a jury would certainly take into consideration if they are going to consider the death penalty. So his mental illness will become a mitigating factor. However, because of the age of the child, that's what makes it a capital murder in this particular instance. I don't know if the insanity or the mental illness is going to work in his favor the way that they're wanting.
All right, Lindsay Richards, appreciate it so much. Dr. Safai is going to stick around. Still to come, should anyone else be held accountable for what happened to Cash?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the tragic abduction and death of little Cash Gernon, taken from his crib and taken from this world in a case that makes zero sense. Here's the story. The chilling abduction of 4-year-old Cash Gernon still haunts Dallas. In May of 2021, surveillance footage captured Darriynn Brown, then just 18 years old, entering Cash's bedroom and carrying him away while his twin brother slept beside him. Hours later, Cash's body was found a few blocks away with multiple stab wounds. Brown was quickly indicted for capital murder, kidnapping, and burglary. His defense has long argued that he suffers from severe mental illness, schizophrenia, hallucination, voices, conditions they say may have driven his actions. For a time, Brown was declared incompetent to stand trial. But in 2025, he was later found competent, clearing the way for his criminal case to proceed. Now, the legal battle will weigh brutal facts, video, DNA, injuries against the question of Brown's mental state at the moment the crime occurred. So there's a lot of strange facts surrounding this, and I remember covering the story when it first happened, trying to put together the pieces of how Cash ended up where he was. He wasn't with either parent. He was with one parent's ex-girlfriend? How does that happen? Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Let's start with Dad. Cody, what do we know about Cash's father?
Well, Vinny, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, living at the ex-girlfriend's house. How'd they get there? Dad's name is Trevor Gernon, and according to the Daily Mail, he was wanted on felony drug charges in Harris County, Texas. And the reason the kids ended up at this woman's house, his ex-girlfriend Monica Sherrod, is because he left them there in March of that year, just a couple of months before the murder happened, while he skipped town to Houston because he missed a March court date for those felony drug charges. So there's a warrant out for his arrest. So he skipped town. And Vinnie, he also walks through more of the situation in this audio statement that was released on YouTube shortly after Cash's murder. Take a listen.
I knew Monica for a good few years before moving to the Dallas area. She was a single parent like me, so naturally I would ask her advice on local things. At the end of February, beginning of March, Monica offered her home and help, which I was thankful for. Being a single dad with twin 4-year-olds can be overwhelming from time to time. When I decided to move back to Houston after an unsuccessful job hunt, amongst other things, I felt it was in the boys' best interest to not disrupt their routine. They were comfortable. They were around other kids, and from what it appeared, Monica was a trustworthy person. This choice I made with best of intentions has resulted in the most horrific outcome. I have paid the most ultimate and painful of price for my poor judgment, and I have to live with this devastation every single day. All I want to do is have that one thing every parent deserves, to say goodbye and be with my son one last time before I return him home. I wish I could give you all of the answers, but I don't have all of them. I'm barely getting through a day that doesn't take me to a dark place. I miss my son. I miss my kids. I hope you all can understand how fragile we all are, and how quickly things can turn upside down.
So, Vinnie, that's his side of the story, the side of the story of a devastated father after this murder occurred. But Vinnie, who we also had here on Court TV with you on closing arguments shortly after that murder happened, is the boy's aunt, this woman named Ashley Marcoe. Here's what she had to say back during that time.
Cash was kind of like the little ringleader. He was the mastermind, and they, just always got into a bunch of little trouble together. And they were active and, all over the place. Those kiddos that just kind of were always into something. Cash was super goofy and loved to make silly faces and loved dinosaurs and trucks, and Carter always followed Cash, and they were learning their shapes and colors.
Take a moment, Ashley. Take a moment. That's okay. I understand.
At the time, he had been with Monica for, I think, 6 months at that point. As a single dad, he knew the boys needed a mother. And I think that, Monica bonded with the boys and was very good with them, and they were happy in her home with their big brothers. My brother has had, a substance abuse issue for some time now. He's been a functional user. And I think that my brother had gotten to a point where he recognized he needed help. Monica, she was a mother to the boys. They had a great bond. They were happy. Their speech was improving. They were, learning their shapes and colors, and, Cash was learning to read. And I think that, he felt like they were safe and happy where they were. Everyone, my brother, my mom, they both wish that they had made different choices or sped up the timeline or worked harder to make, the transition happen faster, but they were just doing their best to make it work. And, I can't, justify my brother's actions or choices. I don't defend them, and he wouldn't want me to. But I know that he was a very attentive, loving, patient father, and he was doing his best. This is not the result of negligence. This is the result of a monster who chose his prey.
So, Vinnie, clearly devastating for everyone involved. I mean, regardless of the father Trevor's legal troubles, I mean, this is still a toddler. This is still his son who is gone in this manner.
Oh, absolutely. You can hear the pain in his voice and his sister as well. What about Cash's mother?
So Cash's mother is this woman named Melinda Seagroves, and unfortunately, Vinnie, it was reported that she didn't know the whereabouts of her twin boys for 2 months leading up to the murder. In fact, the only reason she found out where they were and what they were doing is after police contacted her, informing her that Cash had been murdered. But on a slight positive note, a little silver lining in this tragic story, Cash's twin brother Carter has now been reunited with their mother Melinda. So that's a little good note that's in the midst of all this tragedy here.
Yeah, incredible. All right. Cody, thanks so much. That brings us to the next question in our investigation. We know Darriynn Brown's been charged with the murder, facing the death penalty, but here's our question. Should anyone else be held accountable for what happened to Cash? Whether it's emotionally responsible or perhaps legally responsible for what happened here. Here to help answer our question, psychiatrist, forensic specialist, medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai. Also joining us, family law attorney and law professor, Randy Kessler. Randy, I want to start with you because this is a very unusual circumstance. I don't know exactly what the agreement was or lack of agreement or decision that was made as to why Dad had custody of the twins. But when you have custody as a single parent and you're not with the other parent, can you just leave your children with someone else? Do you have to get permission to do that? Under what? How would that work?
So you can. When you're in charge, you can hire a babysitter. You can do what you want with your children, but parents beat step-parents. Parents trump step-parents. So, you know, the fact that mother didn't know where her child was or her children were, that raises some questions. Was he doing this authentically? Was he, you know, just taking care of the children because mom had some problems? Or was he hiding the children and secreting them away from mother? And had mother been involved and had mother been aware, she could have easily filed a lawsuit and said, hey, Dad's not exercising custody. He's delegating that to a third party. I'm the natural parent. I come first. 99% of the time, mother would win that case. A third party doesn't beat a parent in a custody case. Had mom known where the children were, had she desired to get custody, but there's so much we don't know. Why didn't she know? Did she have some problems? Why did Dad have custody in the first place? There's so many questions on the civil side, on the family law side, that are yet to be explained.
Dr. Safai, you hear it in the father's voice. It seems like he's carrying the weight of this, doesn't want excuses, feels like he made some really bad choices. What are your thoughts about how he's going to handle this, how the surviving twin handles this when he gets older, and then the ex-girlfriend as well, who apparently knew the accused killer, who was, you know, someone that she knew had mental issues and had spent time perhaps at the house previous to all of this. How do you see their roles in all of this and how they sort of process this and this devastating murder of little Cash?
Sure. I mean, as a parent, sometimes we have to make tough decisions, right? And in this case, it seems like, based on the audio we just listened to, that the father was struggling as well. So he acted in what he thought was the best interest of the child, leaving the kid with the ex-girlfriend so he can go either get help, or I don't know what he was doing. But it seems like he genuinely thought he was doing what was best for the kids. Now, is he going to feel guilty for the rest of his life? Oh, absolutely. I'm pretty sure from this point on to the rest of his life, he's going to tell himself, what if I wasn't using substances? What if I just stayed with my kids? What if I just was a better parent after all? I think the emotional guilt will be there forever. But is he to blame for what happened? father? I don't think so. I'm no lawyer. I just think he was doing what he thought was best for the kids. Now, the girlfriend here, I mean, I think the biggest burden is on the girlfriend here because she knew this person. Did she bring this person around the kids previously? We don't know exactly what the relationship was, but I think the burden of guilt here should be mainly on the girlfriend and not the parents, so to speak.
Randy, bottom line here. In order for him to get custody of the twins, the mother, there had to be either issues with mom or mom voluntarily gave them up?
No.
How does that work? Because I think most of us presume that in a custody case, mom's going to get the children.
Right, and that's old school, right? Mom's got to be proven to be terrible. That's not the law. The law is what's best for the children. It might be a little better for the children to live with dad. It might be a little better for the children. All you have to do is tip the scales. What's the best environment for the children at the time of the decision? And I'm going to disagree with our doctor friend a little bit that there's some burden on dad. You don't just say, I'm going to give stepmom, my girlfriend, the kids, without doing some investigation. I mean, stepmom had this guy have access to her house, didn't protect the children. That was not, in hindsight, and again, hindsight's 2020, the best decision. I don't know what mom was going through, but you reach out to the mother of the children if you can't take care of your own children first, in my opinion, unless, like you said, Vinny, there was something terribly wrong with mom, which we don't know. But mom's gotten the other child back. So how bad can she be?
Right. That's the result, right? Randy Kessler, thank you so much. Dr. Savai's going to stick with us. Coming up next, why didn't the killer abduct Cash's twin brother?
This is the Court TV Podcast.
As a police officer, I was angry. As a father, I was angry. Okay? And so the trauma you feel, I can guarantee you my men and women felt as well.
This case really impacted that entire community and the true crime community as well. The murder, the brutal abduction and murder of 4-year-old Cash Gernon. Let's go back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who's been looking into the case for us. And Cody, in this case, the suspect returns to the scene of the abduction.
Yeah, Vinny, and this has to be the creepiest part of the whole thing. He returns just 2.5 hours after he has stabbed this 4-year-old child to death. Let's take a look at that moment here in this video obtained, again, by the Daily Mail. So, Vinny, what I want to do now, let's analyze his clothing. Let's see if he changed clothes from the night or earlier in the night before the sun came back out. So let's look at the first picture from when he was there just a few hours before. We see him there. He has a backpack on clearly. He has the Adidas hoodie on. You can see the Adidas symbol there over his left shoulder, hood pulled up over his head. He has the glasses on as he's sitting there holding Cash. Now let's fast forward 2.5 hours later to the video we just watched. Here in the daytime, you can clearly see there's no backpack on. Looks like he has a hoodie on. Is it the same hoodie? Is it a different one? You can't really tell. He doesn't have the hood pulled over his head. You can't really see if he has the glasses on or anything. But is it the same hoodie? Maybe not, but Vinny, it'd be crucial if he changed clothes. It's a crucial piece of evidence in this story.
Yeah, and the other part of that video is there's a moment where he speaks. Can we tell what he is saying?
So, Vinny, we enhanced the audio. We tried to isolate the vocals. I listened to it well over a dozen times. And again, in this video obtained by the Daily Mail, we put the words on screen from what I could make out of what he said in that few seconds. Let's take a listen. So, Vinny, not much said there. We don't know exactly what was said. That's just what I depicted. We don't know why it was said, but maybe some of those words could play towards his defense. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, Cody Thomas, great reporting tonight. Thanks so much. That second video, he goes back. He has apparently killed Cash, goes back. His brother, Cash's twin brother, is in that same room. He's in the room with him. You see him approach, but then leaves. Brings us to the next question. in our investigation. Why didn't the killer abduct Cash's twin brother? What's going on here? Here to help with our investigation, psychiatrist, forensic specialist, medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai, still with us and still here with us. Retired homicide detective, host of the Murder Mind show, Vince Velasquez. Doctor, let me ask you, it's really strange, number one, returning, but number two, he's kind of there mumbling to himself, approaches the child, but then doesn't take the second child. Can you read anything into that?
I mean, this is tricky. The only person who can really accurately answer this question is the perpetrator. But the thing that stood out to me was that this person felt so comfortable coming back to the scene of the crime. It makes me think that maybe it wasn't his first time there. It makes me think that he was completely familiar with the environment, because you usually don't come back to the scene of the crime to commit more crimes, right? So the thing that really just stood out to me was how comfortable he felt with the whole situation. But to answer your question, I really don't know what he was thinking. We're just going to have to wait and see what he says in trial.
Yeah. Vince, what's more surprising to you, that he returns to the scene that quickly, or that he does not abduct the second child, Cash's twin?
I think that the fact that he showed back up to the scene is really strange. I don't think in my entire 17 years working homicide I've ever seen that before. But let's just face it, this behavior by this defendant, the suspect, is bizarre from the beginning to when he shows back up. Now, clearly in this video, you can see it's daylight out. Perhaps the reason why he didn't abduct the second twin is because, he had the foresight to understand that if I walk out of this house in broad daylight with a child, instead of under the cover of darkness like I did with his brother, I probably won't get away with it. I think this may speak to his sanity, or to go against his insanity defense, that maybe he made that conclusion that this is not a good idea for me to do it. Maybe that was his initial thought. But clearly, I think we could all agree his behavior is completely bizarre.
Yeah, Dr. Safai, the other thing that we've learned is that apparently 2 months prior to this, he had entered another home, attempted the abduction of a 2-year-old girl, was stopped by that girl's grandfather. The grandfather did not press charges in that case, but had allegedly spoken with Monica Sherrod, the girlfriend whose home these children are abducted from, and she knew Darriynn Brown and said he'd been struggling mentally and was, I guess, perhaps friends or associated with her son. We have about 15 seconds left here. What are your thoughts about that?
She knew there's a perpetrator going around breaking into homes and trying to steal kids. She should have done a better job at protecting the 2 kids that she had that were her responsibility from this person. So that is very concerning to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yalda Safai, Vince Velasquez. Great to have you on the program. We'll see you again really soon. Now, for me, the most difficult part of this is thinking about that special bond that those twins have. A bond that was so evident to me when I watched the whole video and saw little Cash walk over to sleep next to his brother. And that's what's so chilling here, is that Cash's brother will someday realize what happened and how close he was to being killed twice. I just hope he can work through it all and live a full, happy life knowing that his brother loved him. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.